in the country where it happened. And that's something we should talk about why that is. But when I was in this refugee camp, I arrived there on a scorching day. It was the hottest place I've ever been, and these people were living. The only other place I've seen as bad is some of the northern Indian villages in British Columbia, where people were stumbling and dying from starvation, literally. And when we arrived, there was 5 of us from Canada. There was this ex-priest. His name was Father Fidel. He called himself Fidel. And he was, after the military coup in Guatemala in 1954, brought to you by the United Fruit Company and the CIA, the junta brought over Catholic priests from Spain and sent them out among the Indians to, quote, save them from communism, without that. And Fidel joked with me. He said, it took them 20 years, but the Indians finally turned me into a Christian. And he said that the way they did that is by letting me see that everything I'd been taught was wrong, and that it was simpler than everything the church had taught me. It was much simpler. And he was watching me really curiously the whole time, and I learned later why, but he was an amazing man. He was shot and killed 2 years after that. There was a death. He had a contract put out on by the local landowners. But in that time, he began to show me some things, as did the people in the camp. And one incident I just want to share with you is, and this is what kind of propelled me towards what I'm doing now. It's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. We were brought into this little sugarcane shack, and all the kids were running around naked and sick. About 100 kids died every year or more in the camp from bad water and all sorts of stuff. And they're all kind of looking in, watching us, and we sat down to give us lunch, right? And there was tortillas and black beans. And then I noticed on our plates there was a little pile of scrambled eggs. And there was maybe 2 or 3 chickens in the whole camp. Right? So, I was looking at these eggs and all these hungry kids, and I got up and I was going to take them to them, and Fidel took my arm and said, "No, just sit down." And he said, "It's their tradition to give their best to the visitors." So I had to sit there and eat their food in front of these hungry kids. And then later they showed me around camp, and they didn't have any food to feed people, but all that they had was the schooling, because what they wanted to do was pass on their language. And to them, that was more important than physical survival. There was something else they were trying to keep alive. When I came back to Canada, I realized that for the first time in my life, I understood what Jesus meant when he said, "the poor blessed," and that they were the ones who were going to went out in the end. Because what I saw in the camp, what I felt there, was something I've never seen anywhere else, and that's people willing to die for one another. People with nothing. And I realized after a while that coming back to Canada was like a nightmare, because there was none of that where I worked and lived. Among all the church people, among all the political activists, among everything, it was people were at each other's throats, as they still often are. And I didn't understand that, because we had everything going for us here, and they had nothing going for them there. And yet that was present among them. And later in my life, when I had everything taken from me, what I thought was everything, starting with my children, which is the hardest thing to bear, I realized I discovered in a little way something that they discovered, and that is when everything is taken from you, that's when you discover who you are. If you don't crumple to self-despair and that kind of bleakness that can hit any of us when we go through bad times. If we can see the meaning in that, purpose in our suffering, then suddenly it's I hate to use this word, but it's redemptive. And so that's something that was given to me as a gift. And later, after all these friends keep dying all the time, I had another friend die just after I left for Europe, William Coombs, who had been the person who identified that the Queen and Prince Philip showed up at a Catholic residential school and took 10 kids away in 1964, and they were never seen again. And he was going to come to London and testify about that, and he died in a hospital one morning out of the blue, Catholic hospital in Vancouver. None of these things are accidental, and you know, it's to be expected. It's like I say at the end of my film, it's to be expected these things will happen, but it doesn't matter ultimately, because that can't stop what's happening in the world. You know, the truth, what I found is the truth has a power all its own. All we have to do is be receptive to that and not be afraid. And then things happen that you couldn't imagine. That to me is part of the lesson of what I've learned from all this. And I just wanted to read another thing, and then I wanted to open it up, because one of the things that where I work in Vancouver is whenever we gather, it's always in circle, and we always recognize that there are no experts among us. We're all experts. So we all carry our own knowledge, and within ourselves is the answers to what we need. It's not going to be brought to us. It's that recognition that it's going to come from within all of us. But only when we're together like this, and a resolve to, like the Mayans did and still do, fight for one another, fight for what's real, fight for the earth, fight for our children. You know, we're down to basic things now. We're down to our survival. I need your help. I need you to talk a little bit. I can't right now. Is that alright? Comment, question? I just need for you.
I know what you're going through. I've been through it all. When you were when you started in Vancouver, a lot of friends started. Yeah, so especially with the residential schools, I have a lot of friends coming from that. And living in whether you died, whether you're abused, physically, sexually. It's really sad to see. And it's true about what you're saying about when you lose everything. I wish you I see all the fault and then you've got yourself right, and then you do have a sense of redemption.
And the years later, it's
been tremendous. And I'll get to that. I just have to stabilize a bit. This is number lecture number 19 in a few weeks. And I just, you know, you keep talking about this stuff, and I feel like I just can't anymore. So I just need to. But I'll come back. I want to talk to you. Yeah.
My name is Kevin.
Hey, good one.
I didn't see another walk. I didn't see Phillips. I haven't seen your books. I haven't seen your book. No other. I do have a sense. I have some involvement with other Catholics. It's your Yankee.
Well, United, that's kind of Presbyterian, but it's all right.
I know. Just how they arrange it. Just technically, just how they deal with it. Can you just tell me about you? Can you tell me about your particular one? I live in Vancouver. Can you tell me just some technical stuff? Somebody
Sure.
This, you know, not the emotions because of where you're at right now. Where do you meet? Where? I know. Maybe some. What's your exact approach?
Right now.
Yeah, please.
Well, it isn't based just in Vancouver. You know, Vancouver in many ways is where it started.